How you doing, guys? It's the Novice. No Country for Old Men. This is my review for it. How would I summarize this movie in one sentence? A reminder of how undisneyfied um, real life can be through storytelling, right? That's how I'd summarize this movie. It's a very undisneyfied movie. What do I mean by that? I mean that it doesn't have the plot armor that you would expect from this movie. A movie like this that has to do with crime, cartels, so on. That's all I'll say. Hitmen and any other movie like a John Wick, Marvel's not Marvel's the obvious example, so I'll leave it there. But like a John Wick, Fast and Furious, there are people who have next level amounts of plot armor. That means they survive any situation. They're suddenly like so quick witted beyond the 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 villain, the antagonist that they're fighting, and it can be jarring sometimes. You want people to struggle a bit more. You want people to fail to show the consequences of people's actions in these stories. And I'm gonna express why this movie does the opposite through the three main characters. Llewellyn, that's Josh Brolin's character. Javier Bardem, he plays a guy called Argo, forget his name. I just Javier Bardem. I just call him that. The hitman character, and then a little bit through Tommy Lee Jones, the sheriff. So first, Josh Brolin's character. He plays a character called Llewellyn. There's a river scene in this movie, guys. I'll just put it this way, without saying too much. He's being pursued by some people, because for reasons I won't get into. But in this movie, he starts to be chased in through a river. Like he wades through a river, then he eventually just like starts swimming through the river, and he's being chased by like a reinforcements that yeah, I'll just put it that way. It's a reinforcement that people have sent to go and follow Josh Brolin's character through this river and go and chase him, right? I don't expect that in movies for some reason. It's like my expectations have been so dumbed down that if someone who you expect to make it for a movie, if he goes through a sticky situation or she, you expect them for the most part to make it. Maybe they'll get like hit like a little bit, like they'll have like a little gash on their face. You know the movies where they have little gashes on their face. I'm not talking superhero movies, by the way, where they take damage but they don't show it too much. I expect something like that, and I expect them to get out of it quite easily, in spite of the like little things that may hurt them along the way. This showed me immediately this is not that kind of movie, because he was just going, and the thing pursuing him was so dedicated. It made me laugh. Like I don't see this shit in movies. Like, how? I want to shout out to the writers, the Coen brothers. I watched The Big Lebowski, one of the other movies. This is maybe they've made other films, but this is a good movie. Not just like one of their personal greats. This is a good movie, and it has to do with the writing, the storytelling a lot. The acting too, but that script sexiness, and this river scene shows it. I just can't spoil it too much, but I'd recommend you guys go and watch the movie and see what I'm talking about, because it just reminds you. It starts a pattern of events in this movie that remind you that no one just gets out of situations scot free. There's no like I mentioned before, a scene where someone is being pursued, like this river scene, or a shootout scene, which I'll go into later on, where someone gets like a little gash or something like that, but they come out fine for the most part, or they take more damage than they should be able to take, like being hit by a car, John Wick, but then they come out fine, right? It's not. This isn't that kind of movie, so be prepared. and that's one of the reasons based on this character here that I really like this movie. Another example to do with this character and also Javier Bardem's character is the the motel scene. Yeah, I say the motel scene with him and Javier Bardem, where their characters first meet. They first truly meet. I love that Llewellyn, Josh Brolin's character, he seemed quick-witted. That's the impression I got for him from the river scene. Um, but not so quick-witted that he wouldn't truly understand why he was still being followed. He wasn't that smart. He was really, you could tell they were trying to make it seem like a bit like he was that stereotype of those kind of characters in these kind of movies where, oh, you know what, I'm being pursued by certain characters. Let me make sure that I'm super smart and I do this and I do that, I do that. And he was making all the right decisions, moving from place to place, not staying anywhere too long, making sure he didn't spend too much money or do like leave any traces to attract too much attention. Not putting like too much of his possessions in the same place. But then he stopped somewhere and he realized why he was still being followed. He was like, oh, of course. Like, it seemed over the top at first, but then I realized, of course, if you have something that valuable on you, there would be some kind of insurance, some kind of way to make sure that I know where this possession is, right? A way to find this thing, this possession, to track it. And when it dawned on him, and then when he meets Javier Bardem, by the way, Bardem, great character in this movie. When they meet, it made so much sense that yes, you aren't a super smart Sherlock Holmes type of character who's just gonna figure out and anticipate every single move. You're not Gus Fring in Breaking Bad. You're not Doctor Who. You're not that kind of genius level. I said Gus Fring. He died because he didn't anticipate something. But you see what I'm getting at. This guy was Josh Brolin, Llewellyn. He was quick-witted, but he wasn't a super genius. And his flaws and his pride, thinking that he got away, was what led him to taking L's in this movie, just like any other human. And that's why this movie is very undisneyfied on his part. Javier Bardem's character. Now, here's the reason why I think this movie shows how undisneyfied storytelling can be through him. He's a character who he kills people in very efficient ways. Like the weapon he uses, I don't want to say what it is, but here's the example I use. The second kill of this movie, he uses a certain weapon to kill someone, and when he does it, you think to yourself, like, why is he using this weapon? Why wouldn't he just use a gun, so-and-so weapon to hurt someone? And then they mentioned it in an offhand scene, and I was listening carefully when they were talking about how they use the same weapon that he's using to kill certain animals. And when they said that, then it clicked. Damn, this movie's writing again is so smart. It keeps hitting the nail on the head, but it's not trying to be too obvious about it. It's not trying to spoon feed. Oh, here's the clue here. Here's A. Here's B. Now here's C. No, it's just leaving things out. And then if you catch it, you catch it. If you don't, you don't. I love that he's an efficient killer. They didn't make it so you're watching a movie by comparison. Let's say, let me think. Let's say you're watching. Okay, I'll do a superhero example just for the sake of argument. Let's say you're watching Iron Man, an Iron Man movie, and Iron Man starts fighting someone with his fists, and you think to yourself, wait, why don't you just use your lasers all the time on people, or your blasts on people? That stuns people instantly. At the very least, if you use it like enough, it will probably kill them. You don't really have to go too close to them. You can stay your distance because people are unpredictable. You never know the variables when you're going. Like, I don't need to be like an MMA expert to know that this movie considers that kind of flaw, that kind of convenient plot armor, and then puts it through this guy and the way he kills people and the way he tracks people. He's always methodical about it. He's always thinking ahead. Another thing I like about this character is that, again, undisneyfied. I like how. Okay, minor spoiler. I like how he doesn't just meet a bad end. Like someone like him, you would think, you would look at him and think, okay, this guy, you're a piece of garbage. I understand if you're not gonna make it through this movie. You expect that. He makes it through this movie. And I kind of appreciate it because, you know, when you what's the phrase? When you love to hate certain people. I mentioned Gustavo Fring. I love Gustavo Fring. Breaking Bad, that's my guy. I'm watching The Boys right now. Homelander. There's always certain people in certain shows and certain movies that are horrible people, but you want them to stick around because these people are they're so fascinating to consider, like, in terms of how they do the really despicable shit. How do you go about doing that? How do you think the way you think? How do you get away with it every time? Almost every time. I like thinking about those questions, and I like them being around for me to think about those questions. He sticks around, and I love it. And I love how they kept you guessing about how, is this guy really crazy, or is he just someone who's just doing his job? Because it never on a base level, it never seemed personal. Every scene where he was pursuing certain characters, where he would kill people connected to certain characters, he does this in this movie, all for his job, right? But at the same time, those coin flip scenes specifically, they had me thinking, wait, is he just using this as a cover to hide how much he's more like a Hannibal Lecter, American Psycho type character? How he just kills because it's like a bloodthirst to him. He's a vampire without being a vampire. I could never tell, and I love that about this film. Lastly, the sheriff, right? Tommy Lee Jones's character. He's a guy who they mentioned at the start of this movie through his narration. I love that narration effect, by the way. Shout out to the Coen brothers again for using that. His kind of voiceover narration about how the passage of time and it can be frustrating doing your job, where it feels like a new, harsher world that you're dealing with, like new and harsher times. I completely understand it. I'm not just talking about crime and like facing new challenges, but just in life. Life can feel frustrating, and they constantly reinforce that through his behavior, like where he looks off, like he knows, you know what, I'm gonna try and do my job because I'm a good person, but I'm not gonna pretend like I can help you with everything I do. I understand why he thinks that. I know it seems cynical, but to me, as long as you strategy the best you can, it's not always your fault when bad things happen. And bad things happen in this movie on his watch, but it's not necessarily his fault. People, again, no plot armor. People get away with bad things under his watch, and it is his. He embraces that. You know what? Yeah, I'm just not. Maybe this life is too. It's not my kind of life. You can tell that from his behavior, but he doesn't seem to me like someone who hates his job. That's not what I'm trying to get at. He's not depressed about that. He's just depressed about the kind of enemy he's facing through his work as a sheriff. I loved how nuanced it felt throughout this movie, guys. That's my opinion. That this is a great movie. I understand the legend status behind it. Again, this is a great movie if you hate plot armor. Please go watch this movie. No Country for Old Men. It's a thumbs up from me. Tell me, guys, what you think down below. If you've watched this movie already, do you like it? Tell me why. If you haven't watched this movie, would you watch it based on this review? Tell me your thoughts down below. If you like this video, please press that thumbs up button. It helps me share videos to more lovely people like yourself. And feel free to check out some of my other videos too. Other than that, signing off, guys. Salute.